Welcome everyone. This is Mylio's Importing and Consolidation webinar. I am your host. I'm JC Figueroa, Customer Champion at Mylio, and I will be presenting. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk about starting with a home for your originals, also known as a vault. We'll talk about what is a vault, why it's important, and we'll actually go ahead and set one up. We'll talk about the different sources of photos. Where do we keep photos? And how can we bring photos from all those different sources into Mylio to create a consolidated library? We'll talk about Mylio's import panel and all the different options that you have there. And last but not least, we'll talk about next steps. What do we do once we've imported all photos? We have a nice full consolidated library with every photo we could want. What do we do next? So let's just jump right in. We recommend that you start with a vault. Now, what is a vault? A vault is one or more devices that has enough storage capacity to hold all the original photos plus any new future photos. And let me explain a few things. When I talk about original photos, what I mean is the photo as it came off from the camera or from the device it was taken with. So your phone, your camera, maybe a scanner if it was a print photo that you scanned. That original file that presents the highest possible resolution and is the largest file in size is what we refer to as the original. And originals are really important because they have the full resolution, the most available resolution. So if you want to print something, do an enlargement, if you want to do some editing, having a file that has enough data in it, enough resolution and pixel density, is going to render a much better result than starting with a file that has been compressed or cropped. So that's what we mean when we say store all your originals. Now, any device that has enough storage can be a vault. So if you have a desktop computer that doesn't move around, it stays in your office, in your home most of the time, and it has a large enough storage capacity, that can make for a really good vault. External drives are excellent vaults. This is why we've partnered with Seagate, and some of you purchased a Seagate drive and got a free subscription to Mylio. External drives make for great vaults because you can have multiple external drives. You can move them around from one computer to another, and you know exactly where your photos are. Same with network attached storage. Network attached storage, also known as a NAS, are storage devices, hardware devices that have multiple hard drives in them, and they have built-in redundancy. So you're less likely to lose data because of a hardware failure because those drives have multiple drives in them and they make internal copies of things. And of course, cloud services. Mylio itself is not a cloud service. When you import your photos into Mylio, they are not going up to the cloud, but we do support third-party cloud services. So you can choose Google, Amazon, or OneDrive as one of the cloud services that are supported by Mylio, and those can become one of your vaults. Devices that don't make for a good vault are mobile devices, right? Like your phone. Phones don't tend to have a lot of storage and are always at risk. We travel with them and they're more likely to get dropped, lost, damaged, stolen. Same with laptops. Laptops tend to not have a lot of storage. If you use your laptop or your mobile device as your vault, you're likely to fill up the internal storage, the drive on those devices, or those devices have a higher propensity for being damaged or lost. And then your original photos will be lost along with them. So we recommend some of the options listed here on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into Mylio. And we're going to show you how to create a vault using an external drive. And what I have here is a brand new account. There's nothing in it. I'm going to skip the slides and I'm going to go right into the part where I signed in. So I won't spend too much time on it, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up to an account I already created. And we'll create a vault. Mali asked me if I want a promo code. For those of you that bought a Seagate drive, this is how you redeem your code, or perhaps you have a code from another source. I'm also going to skip this part. And at this point, I have the option of adding files. And this would be the time when I could add files that are right here on the computer, or if I had files on an external drive. These are both options for, that during this initial setup I could use to bring photos in. But because what I want to do is I want to set up my vault first. I want to set up an external drive to be the repository for my originals so that the internal storage on my computer doesn't get filled up with files. I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to skip import. And I'm going to go right to the final screen where Mylio completes the initial setup. I can name my device. I could connect calendars so that events are automatically created, but I'm not going to do any of those things. Simply going to complete the setup. Mylio brings me into the main screen here. We're going to be going right into the dashboard in Mylio in just a second. So here's the dashboard. The dashboard is the place in Mylio where you can see information about your system, the configuration of your system. For those of you that are new and are just starting, this getting started section can be very beneficial. In here, you can take a tour of the software. You can add your files, do different configurations. So following these steps in order can be very beneficial. And you'll even see a progress of your setup here. When you get to 100%, you know that you completed all the getting started steps. But what we want to do right now is we want to create and add a vault. So I'm going to go to Actions, and I'm going to add a device. And when I click Add Device, Mylio gives me a few different options: external drive, cloud service, network attached storage, phone, computer. Right now, I want to add an external drive as my vault. So I'm going to click that. Mylio shows me all the drives that are available to me that are connected to the computer. I'm going to select this first Seagate drive, click Next. Mylio says that this drive will be added and will store all the files in their original quality, which is what I want. So I'm simply going to click Finish Setup. And if I click now on Devices here, I'll see that both my iMac has been set up and my Seagate drive is set up. They say they're in sync, which they are because there's no photos in my account yet. If I went to one of Mylio's other views, which are these views up here, all photos, calendar, map, people, album, folders, different ways to look at my library of files. If I go to them, there is nothing in them yet. But my device is ready to go. My vault is ready to go. If I open the Finder, I go to that drive that I just added, you'll notice there's a Mylio folder in there, and that folder is going to be empty for now. There's not a lot of data in it because we haven't added any photos, but we'll come back to it and we'll see the photos as we add them get populated. All right, so we added a vault. Now let's talk about sources of photos. Where do we keep photos and how do we bring those photos in? Well, one of the best places to start is with existing libraries. Maybe you've been using Apple Photos or Google Photos. Those libraries can be brought directly into Mylio. Aperture is one of Apple's former photo organization applications that is no longer in production, but people still have Aperture libraries and they can access their photos. Well, Mylio can read those libraries and bring them in. Of course, you have other computers that might have photos in them, your phone, or perhaps even an old phone that you're holding onto because it has some photos that you need to extract. Hard drives, CDs and DVDs, camera, memory cards, and of course, paper photos and negatives, which could be scanned and turned into digital media and brought into Mylio, and photos that are up on social media or other cloud services. So we'll talk about most of these. But we're going to start with a library. And in this case, we're going to start with an Apple Photos library. I can go into Mylio. I can go back to this Actions menu. And if I click Add Files, Mylio is going to present to me the import panel with different options for importing photos. I can also access the exact same panel from the top right corner of the screen where the import button is. I know, Mylio, we're talking about it. That's always there. I don't have to go into the dashboard and Actions. That's another way to access the same panel. And what we want to do is we want to bring an Apple Photos library, which is option number 4. If you're on a Windows computer, you're not going to see this option because Aperture and Apple Photos doesn't run in that operating system. So you only see this option if you are like I am now on a Macintosh computer. So I'm going to click on that. And there's just one button in the middle that says Apple Photos. Now, in order for this to work, there's a couple of settings that you should make sure are set correctly in your Apple Photos library. So very quickly, I'm going to launch Apple Photos here. And I'm going to show you what those settings should be. Here's my Apple Photos library. I'm going to go into the preferences. And for preferences, there's two tabs. There's the general tab and the iCloud tab. On general, I want to make sure that this button here is grayed out, or that the library that I want to use, which is specified here under library location, has been set as the system photo library, because that's what Mylio looks for. So if I have multiple iPhotos libraries, I can still bring them all in, but there should be one that is the library you want Mylio to constantly synchronize with, and that is the system photo library. In this case, the library I want has already been selected as the system library. So that button is grayed out. I can't change it because it already is. So make sure this is correct for you. The other setting, and this one's really important, whether you're using iCloud Photos or not, I'm not using it in this case, but you want to make sure that all the originals are downloaded to your Mac, that button with the radio dial next to it. And this is important because Mylio nor any other third-party application can access things on iCloud. Only Apple applications access iCloud. And if your photos are on iCloud, Mylio cannot access them. They have to be locally. So make sure that that button is selected and that the photos are downloaded to your computer. If you're in a situation where downloading your photos to your computer is not possible, perhaps because you don't have enough local storage, do send us an email at support. There's ways to get around those issues, and we're happy to help you with that. So just send us a note, give us your specific circumstances, and we'll help you out. So I am downloading all my photos to my iMac, so the photos are actually locally available. My library is set up as a system library, so everything is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and quit Photos because it doesn't have to be running for Mylio to read the library. And I'm simply going to click that button. If I have multiple iPhoto photos or Aperture libraries, I could also access those and navigate to them using the other library function. And then I would just select whatever that library might be. I just select it and hit open. But in this case, we're going to do the Apple Photos library. I simply click it. Mylio starts importing. You'll notice that it does it very fast. There were only 31 photos in that library. But this icon up here is our notifications and activity. In there, you can see the progress of any import. And here, Mylio already imported and is detecting faces. You can also see a notification giving you details of how the import went. So if you want to know how things are going, this is the place to find that information. And if I go now to my dashboard and click on devices, you'll notice my two devices are already in sync. The original photos have already been copied to the CK drive. That's what the green check mark means. If I go here to folders, Mylio has created an Apple Photos folder. Within that folder, there is a folder for the iMac Photos library. If I were to open that hard drive in the Finder, remember, this is the drive that we added as our vault. And I open the Mylio folder, there is an Apple Photos folder in there. And within that folder is the iMac library, and all the photos that were imported can be found there directly on the hard drive. So there you have it. We did our first import. Now let's look at other things that we can import. We can add other computers, right? So with Mylio, you can have multiple devices, and whether you import photos on one device or the other, everything synchronizes. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to stop sharing from this screen. I'm going to switch over to a Windows computer, and I'm going to add that computer to the same account. Okay, so now I'm going to launch Mylio on this computer. And I'm simply going to log in with the same credentials that I logged in on my other account or on my other device. Same Mylio account, 2 different devices. I use the same email and password. Or if you signed in with Google or Facebook, you use the same method to log in as well. So I'm just going to log in to the same account here. I'm going to hit continue. Mylio gives me a chance to enter a promo code again. I don't have one, so I'm going to skip. And then it asks me, okay, are you setting up a new device or replacing an existing one? And what I'm doing is I'm setting up a new device. I'm adding another computer to my Mylio account. So I'm going to click new device. And then Mylio says, okay, do you want to store original files here, which will turn my computer into a vault? Or do you want to save space on this device? Meaning Mylio will put optimized version of my photos, smaller versions of my photos, so it doesn't fill up the drive, which is what I want, right? This is a small laptop, a small Windows laptop. I don't want to put my originals in it. The originals are going to go to the external drive vault I already created. So I'm simply going to say, no, go ahead and save space on this device. And Mylio gives me the chance to name it. I'm going to name it something that makes more sense. This is my Surface laptop. And I'm going to complete this setup. And Mylio takes me right to the dashboard. If I click on devices now, you'll notice that I have the Surface laptop I just added, the iMac that was there before, and the Seagate drive. So far, so good. Now I want to add more photos. Oh, what happened there? Well, Mylio just synced from the other devices. So if I go here to the folders, you'll notice that the photos that I added on my Mac have already been synced over to my Windows machine. That folder got created. And if I go into my calendar, you'll notice that all these photos are already being organized by year, etc. So far, so good. But what we want to do is we want to add more photos using this computer. And in this case, I'm going to use the Windows machine to bring in my Google Photos library. I'm going to go here to Actions, go to Add Files. You'll notice, as I mentioned before, that on a Windows system, I only have 4 options instead of 5. But what I want right now is online services. That's where the Google Photos library can be accessed. If I click on there, Mylio is going to give me some step-by-step instructions on how I can bring my photos from Google Photos into Mylio. The way we recommend you do it is by using a service called Google Takeout. Here's a link. If I click that link, it will open a window that goes directly to the Google Takeout Manager. Also in this browser, I have my Google Photos already open. So this is what my library looks like. And you'll notice that I have a number of photos. I also have a couple of albums created here. Remember that I have a Christmas album and a cats album. But let's go to this Google Takeout function. One of the things that Mylio does is it gives me a link to Google Takeout, but it gives me also a link to instructions on how to use Google Takeout. If I click that link, it goes to our support page, and here are step-by-step instructions on how to use Google Takeout. So everything that I'm going to describe here can be found by clicking that link. So it's really actually very simple. When you first launch Google Takeout, it automatically selects everything that you could download from your Google account, calendars and bookmarks and contacts and all of that. We don't want all that. We only want the photos. So I'm going to click deselect all. I'm going to scroll down until I find Google Photos, which is the only thing I want to select. There it is. I'm going to click that. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list, hit next step. And then it gives me some options on how to export my photos from Google Takeout. Just leaving the default settings is just fine. If you have specific way in which you want to do it, go for it. There's instructions on that support link. But I'm just going to leave the settings as they are. When I click Create Export, Google says, okay, I'm gonna set this up. And depending on your size, the size of the library, it might only take a few seconds or a few minutes, or it might take a day or two if you have a very large library. And what will happen is that you'll receive an email from Google saying your download is ready, and then you can click on that download and access the files. I've done this ahead of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this. And I'm gonna show you that I've already downloaded those files. If I open up my Windows Explorer here and go to the downloads folder, you'll see that there's already a Google Takeout file ready to be used. And it's a compressed zip file, but don't worry about that because Mylio is gonna do all the work for you. So now that I've downloaded my Google Takeout file, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell Mylio to locate those files. I'm gonna point it to the downloads folder where I know those files to be, select that folder, and Mylio just goes ahead, read that files, decodes it for you, and tells you what it has to import. It has 70 photos to import, 2 albums. It tells me the size of the album, and I can cancel or I can go ahead and begin the import, which is what I want. So I'm gonna begin import. Mylio asked me to choose a destination. Where do I wanna put these photos? Well, I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it Google Photos because that's where they're coming from. So I'll know where those photos came from. But you might want to put it in a different place. It's up to you. And I'm gonna hit import now. Now Mylio is starting the import process. I can click on my notifications and activity. It shows me the progress of that import. And what Mylio has done, if I go up on my folder structure here, is it created that Google Folders container folder that I, Google Photos folder that I wanted. And in that folder, it has separated my photos by year, and all the photos are being imported. And now they're done. And if I click on my albums, you'll notice that my albums were also imported. And all the files are starting to be organized along with the files that were already there. So there you have it. We added another computer and we imported from Google Photos. Let's switch back to the Mac and see how things look from that screen. Give me just a second here. I'm gonna stop sharing from this computer, switch back to the other one. And if we look at Mylio here and we look at devices, you'll notice that now there's the Surface laptop added, and all those files that we added from Google Photos are being uploaded to that Seagate drive. You see that? If I open up that drive on the Finder, aside from the Apple Photos folder, there's a Google folder created with all the different years for which there were photos, and the photos for each year are being imported. And now all the files are in sync. If I go to my folder view, I can see the Google Photos folder with all the photos in it. And if I go to my calendar, I can see that there's more photos now from different years. If I go to my map, I can see that there's photos being organized in a map view, and everything is as it should be. So let's go back to our list of sources and see what else we can bring. If you have more computers than you want to keep on your account, you can always add a computer, extract the photos from it, and then remove that computer from the list of devices. As long as you have a vault set up, all the originals will go to that vault and everything else will be synchronized. So you don't have to permanently keep an old computer connected to your Mylio account. If you're holding onto a computer because it's the only place that has photos and you want to extract those photos and then dispose of that computer, you can do so by the method that I just showed you. You log into your Mylio account, you use one of the import functions depending on where your photos are. Right there in Mylio on the device, you can unregister that device and everything else will still be available to you. All right, let's bring photos from our phone, right? So we all take photos from our phone these days. Maybe you have multiple phones you want to add to your Mylio account. Let's see how that process would work. So we'll go back here to Actions, and we'll go back to Add a Device. And in this case, I'm going to click phone or tablet. And Mylio again gives me specific instructions on how I can do it. It even gives me a QR code, so I don't have to go search for the Mylio app on the Apple Store, because all we're doing is we're adding Mylio to that device, right? If we were on a computer, we would have downloaded Mylio, which I had previously done on that computer, on the Windows computer. In the phone, we have to download the app, but instead of having to go to the App Store, either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, if you're using an Android phone, you can simply just point the camera to this screen with the QR code, and Mylio will open up the download page for the app for you. So here I'm sharing the phone screen of my phone, and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to open the camera application. I'm going to go ahead and point it to the screen. It reads the QR code and it gives me the option to open Mylio.com on Safari, which in turn takes me to the App Store. I can hit the download button, and now that app is being downloaded to my phone. I can see it being installed right there. And as soon as the download is ready, all I'm going to have to do is sign in with the same account. So Mylio even tells me what the account is. It says you need to sign in with this email and your password. If I had used Apple ID or Google ID, it would say sign in with your Google ID in here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to launch Mylio, and I'm going to sign in with the same email and password as before. Hit continue. And now Mylio is, let's make this window bigger so you can see the options better. Mylio is going to ask me a couple of questions. Do I want to add photos taken with this device, with my phone? Yes, I absolutely do. So I'm going to hit continue. And Mylio says, do you want to select which photos you want to add, or do you want access to all the photos? And that answer is up to you, but keep in mind that if you allow access to all photos, then Mylio will be able to synchronize any new photos you take. Even if you don't have photos now, or there's only a limited set of photos you want to import, by giving Mylio access to all photos, future photos will also get synchronized, which is what most people want. Then it takes me to this completion screen where I can rename the device. I can do things like protect to a cloud service. So I could add a third-party cloud service, just like I can do on the computer. I could set up Mylio to free up space automatically. So when you take photos with your phone, they go into your phone's camera roll. Once Mylio has copied those photos and put them on your vault, it can go back and delete them from your camera roll so that you're freeing up space on your phone, because the optimized version of the photo will already be in the Mylio app on your phone. So you can see it within Mylio. You don't need to have it in two places. So this is a place where you can set up Mylio to free up space automatically and only delete photos that have already been saved in their original form elsewhere. It's not something we're going to do today, but know that you do have that option. It is turned off by default. And you can also connect calendars. We're just going to complete the setup. Mylio asked me if it can connect to other devices on my network, which is how it's going to synchronize. So I say, okay. And right away, Mylio imported all the photos from the Apple Photos in the phone from your camera roll. If I go here to my folders, you'll see that my Google Photos have synchronized to the phone. And in the Apple Photos folder, now there is two folders, the iMac library that we had before, and there is this library of photos that came directly from the phone. And if I go to my computer and I click on devices here, now I'm going to have 4 devices. I have my Seagate drive, which you can tell is synchronizing the photos from my phone already. And I have my 2 computers and my mobile device. If I open up the Finder view and look at the hard drive directly, you'll notice that now under Apple Photos, there is both an iMac library and an iPhone library. And within that iPhone library, all the photos that were in the phone are being brought directly to that drive because that's my vault. So we're making progress. Let's look at our folder structure here. You see all the photos. And again, the calendar is bringing more and more photos in and organizing those photos for you in different views. Excellent. What other sources can we bring? Well, we can copy photos from a hard drive or from a CD or from a camera memory card. All of those choices are going to be available to you. We can, again, go to the dashboard, click Actions, and click Add Files. Or from any view, I can click this Import button and bring up the same import panel. I'm going to click External Drive. And Mylio lists the drives that are connected. Source is the external drive where I have pictures. So I'm going to select that and hit Continue. And then Mylio gives me two options. One is add without moving. The other one is copy. If I add photos without moving them, what that means is that Mylio is going to keep the photos just where they are in whatever folder structure they already exist. But in this case, because this is an external drive, it will make that drive a vault. So all your photos from other sources will also get copied to that drive. If that is not what you want, then don't choose this option. You might want to choose the copy option. The other advantage to the copy option is that it helps me reduce or eliminate the number of duplicates that I might otherwise put in my library, because when I use copy, which I'm doing right now, I'm going to click copy. I'm going to click here on sample library, and please notice that under sample library, there's already a folder structure. My photos were already organized in this library. Mylio is going to remember this organization and it's going to preserve it and respect it. So I'm going to hit open, and Mylio gives me this option called Exclude Suspected Duplicate. It is turned on by default. It also tells me that there's over 1,000 files in this library. There's probably 500 photos and 500 sidecar files. How much space this library is going to take, and it gives me the option to delete the files after import, which is off by default. I'm simply going to hit continue. Mylio is going to again ask me for a destination. Where do I want to put these photos? I'm going to go ahead and put these in the Mylio Pictures folder, and I'm going to click import now. You'll notice I right away get an activity window going. And here Mylio is adding all those folders for me. And if I open the Mylio Pictures folder, you'll notice that it has created the sample library folder. And within it, there's all the subfolders that I had already before. Mylio is preserving that folder structure. If I go here to my dashboard and click on devices, you'll notice that as new photos come in, those photos are being synchronized both to my Surface laptop and to my phone. I can switch here to my phone view and show you that those folders are being created on my phone and those photos are being synchronized. And they're also being saved to the Seagate drive. Looks like that import is going to take a couple more minutes. But what's great is that you can keep doing things while this is going. I can go here to the calendar. I can look at what photos have been imported. Let me close this window so it's not in the way. And I can start working with my photos right away. I can look at the map and I can see that now there are more photos popping up everywhere. If I go to my people view, Mylio has already started scanning faces and is telling me that there's 305 faces that I need to identify. Of course, the albums I created in Google Photos are there, but I could create new albums if I wanted to. I can continue working while that import is still going. And Mylio will continue to not only import those photos, but it'll continue to synchronize them to other devices. All right, where else can we bring photos from? We talked about CDs and DVDs. Same thing, you use that external drive function and you'll get the same options as well. You can also use the copy function, and that just lets you copy anything that you can see with your computer. So if you hit copy, Mylio is going to show me anything that it can access. So any drive that is connected, even a drive that's on the network, you could copy files from that device or from that location right into Mylio using the copy import command. And anytime you use copy import, you get that option to exclude duplicates. So as you bring photos from different sources, you're not running the risk of creating duplicates and making your library larger than it has to be. The other option here is camera or SD card. You can click that, and if an SD card is connected to your computer, Mylio will read it. But really, it's much easier than that. I have an SD card right here. I'm going to go ahead and plug this into my computer, and the option to import from that card will just pop up. Give me a second. And there it is. So Mylio has read that there's a Nikon camera card connected. It tells me, oh, you have 162 photos. They're going to take this much room, and exclude suspected duplicates. And we're just going to hit continue. It asks me again where I want to put them. I'm going to create a new folder and call it camera photos. Hit create, import now. And what Mylio is going to do is it's going to queue up this import next to the imports that were already going. And it'll go ahead and create the folders and start synchronizing those photos right away. Here I am on my phone screen, and you'll notice that even on the phone, that camera folder has already been created. And as photos start coming in just a second, they'll start synchronizing with that folder as well. And if I go here on the computer, there's the camera folder. If I look at my activity, that import has been queued up. Mylio is telling me it's going to take so many minutes, but the photos continue to come in. All right, let's wrap import up by talking about the two other sources, printed photos or negatives. There's lots of options to digitize your content. You can use a service. I've used legacy bots in the past. There's a number of services where you can send your photos. They will scan them for you, put them in a thumb drive, and then send back both the photos and the thumb drive. And you just plug that thumb drive into your computer, use the copy import command, and import all the photos into Mylio. Same with negatives. For social media or cloud services, there are some social services that we can import directly. If you click here on online service, you see that we can connect directly to Flickr or Facebook. You simply have to provide your login information into those services, and Mylio will connect and download the photos. For other services, things like Dropbox or other cloud storage, what we recommend is that you download those photos locally first, and then use the import command, the import copy command to copy those photos. All right, so let's make sure we've covered everything. We talked about add without moving versus copy. What happens if you add without moving or you use copy command? We talk, of course, about the copy command used in external drive, online services, Aperture, and photos, which are only available on a Mac, not on a Windows system, and importing from a camera or SD card. So we cover all of that. So I guess the only thing left is to talk about what's next. What else could I do? Well, you could add a second repository for your originals. You can add more vaults. And the advantage of adding more vaults is that you have more redundancy. You protect your photos further. So let's do that really quick and see how Mylio handles that. I'm going to go here to the dashboard, and I see that under drives and clouds, I only have the one drive, and everything is being copied to it. But if something happened to that drive, I would lose all my photos. So I'm going to add another device. And I can do that right here from the devices panel. There's that add button. Previously, we had done it from the action menu. It is the same thing. One thing that I didn't talk about is adding a cloud service. You can click on cloud service, and like I mentioned before, you can add Amazon, Google, or OneDrive as repositories for your originals. And when you try to add those services, Mylio gives you the option to even encrypt your files. So if privacy is really important to you, this is something that you can do. You can encrypt your files and keep them private, or you can not encrypt them, and then you'll be able to view them on Google, but so could other people or services. So be cognizant of that. But I'm just going to add another external drive. I have another Seagate backup here. I'm going to select that as my extra vault, my secondary vault, and I'm going to finish setup. And right away, Mylio simply adds that drive as a vault, and it starts synchronizing it right away. So here it is side by side. One of them is already in sync, but as new photos come in, you'll see those photos being copied to that one. The other drive is being backed up and replicated immediately. So all the photos that we have brought into the system are being replicated. And do notice that as new photos come in, they immediately get organized. So my view of my calendar is expanding more and more. So is the view in my map. More and more photos are being imported all over the place. And of course, my folders are being populated accordingly. So there you have it. Other things that you might want to start doing is add other devices. Maybe you have a tablet, an iPad, or other kinds of tablets are great mechanisms to using Mylio. Everything that you can do on the computer, you can do on a tablet or on a phone. So it's fun to not have to be tied to your computer because the changes that you make on one device replicate to all the other devices. And of course, you want to start organizing your photos more. And with Mylio, you can organize by folders, by albums. You can do face tagging. You can use categories, add rating to your photos, add keywords. The list of possibilities is almost endless. It just goes on and on and on. And we have upcoming webinars that talk a lot about organization. We have a webinar where we talk about using folders, albums, and events. So if you want to start organizing the photos you imported, join us for that webinar. So that is all for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope I see you on our next webinar. And until then, take care.